I'd like to welcome you to the special Darien Board of Education Facilities Committee meeting. It is Tuesday, November 23rd, at 8 a.m. I'd like to open the agenda by calling for the election of a committee chairperson. They have a motion to nominate a chairperson. Dave. Is there someone you'd like to nominate?
Yes, sure.
Okay, may I have a second? Julie. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Congratulations, Dennis. I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you all very much. The first and only item, the first item on our agenda is discussion of new and reprioritized capital projects, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Adley.
Morning, everyone. Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman, again.
Thank you.
Thank you to our facilities department, Kevin and Esther, for being here, and Richard also, as we walk through the capital projects. I will speak to an item that's not on this when we get that far. But with that, I'm happy to ask Kevin to lead us through the projects as they're listed.
Good morning, everybody. So as we prepare for budget season over the last year, we've had numerous instances where we had to reprioritize the capital plan, and we've highlighted the various projects here for you to review so that when we go into budget season, you've had at least a chance to look at it and give us some feedback. Some of the items that are new are driven by our new security director, who wasn't here last year, who provided some insight and input to these projects, as well as emergency type repairs, whether it's rebuilding the chimney at middle school or an air conditioning unit that failed at Tokenique this past summer. Those have now been shifted up as we need to address those sooner rather than later. I'd also like to call your attention to the replacement cycle district-wide equipment. Previously, we did not identify custodial or grounds equipment, which we've now done so. Those are big, heavy pieces of machinery that need to be replaced regularly, and they weren't identified in previous versions of the capital plan. Sorry. Okay. So starting with the high school, the first project up is the phase 2 of the theater renovation project. You'll recall last year, phase 1 was mostly driven by audio. We've also since then accepted a wonderful donation of the LED video wall, which is in progress. Continuing through the high school, the library reimagined project has been scaled back to just include carpet, new library stacks to make the space more flexible, and also to address a leak in the southeast corner of the building. In the high school, there's a line item for furniture replacement. Over the last year or so, we've had a number of student desks that are breaking. The cross support bar is become problematic on a number of desks. These pieces of furniture are original to the school and certainly need to be addressed. Leon has added in the radio replacement cycle. These are handheld portable radios that every school utilizes every single day, and they are quite expensive. So this allows us to upgrade our walkie-talkies throughout the district. In rooms 203, 205, and 207, 209 at the high school, we have operable walls. These are used on a weekly basis, and the track and gearing system has been continuously problematic, causing the wall to bow and flex and not open and close properly. We need to look at replacing those in order to allow the sound to stop going from one side of the room to the other, allow the teachers to be able to instruct the students better than they can now. The pole vault pit mats were also added, similar to the furniture, 18 years old, needing replacement. I touched on the chimney at the middle school. The door closers was identified last year and it's just moved up appropriately. This is a security issue where the classroom doors don't close on their own currently. And obviously in a lockdown type situation, that's less than ideal. The classrooms on the chiller. So the chiller was replaced 2 years ago, excuse me. and it's short cycling. And what that means is during the cooling season, the chiller is shutting off prematurely due to not having enough load on the unit itself. That can cause damage to the chiller because it's actually designed to run continuously. What we're trying to do is add load, room, or space so that the machine is running properly and not constantly turning on and off during the warmer months. The oil tank monitoring system at the middle school is failing. That's not to say the oil tank itself is failing. We've tested all of our oil tanks and they're in good working order, but the system that allows us to understand the readings, the oil readings, the electrical components, and what is going on with the tank are getting old and now not working at the middle school. That tank is not set to be removed or replaced for another 8 years. So we need to at least have the monitoring system up and running for the duration of the remaining life of the tank. Up at Ox Ridge, we put an item in here to help us remove snow during the winter. We have a lot more sidewalks than we ever had before, and the custodians up there could really use some help in getting that school ready during snow events. Moving to Tokenique, the bus loop, paving the bus loop was identified in previous versions of the plan, so that just moved up. And the air conditioning unit and server room I spoke about earlier, that stopped around August of this year. And given the fact that we have more servers in the space now, we actually need additional cooling, increasing from 8,000 to 18,000 BTUs. So this project includes upgrading the electrical and replacing the AC completely. Again, an oil tank monitoring system. This one's just in need of repair. It is not failing yet, but certainly needs some adjustments and some repairs. Over at this building, we have a line item to replace some windows on the first floor in this room, as well as over in financial services. They are leaking and just in need of replacement. Moving over to district-wide, we have added the replacement cycle of Suburbans, adding a 7th Suburban for out-of-district placement, an ADA wheelchair van, and then the replacement for the IT pickup truck, which is a hand-me-down from the facilities department many years ago. It's 22 years old and serious need of replacement and doesn't meet the needs of the IT department to move technology equipment around the district. So we're recommending a van for their use. Additionally, snow removal machine at the high school, as well as the custodial equipment that we spoke about earlier. And then last but not least is the radio equipment throughout the district. I spoke to Mr. Krolikowski before the meeting. He wasn't able to attend today, but this essentially changes and adds repeaters at all the schools so that they can communicate with Darien Police Department, and it also adds central office onto that system as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Do we have any questions from me? Katie?
Kevin, just to start off, can you remind us how old the high school and the middle school are?
Sure. The high school is 20 years old, and the middle school, it depends on which part you're talking about. It's,
Right.
There's a 1940 section, then the late 90s, we did the extension on the back.
The 1940s is the piece that faces the road with the sort of what looks like the main entrance that we no longer use as a main entrance.
That's right. And
Okay.
that's the section where we want to rebuild the chimney on the northeast corner.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Julie?
Thank you.
So just to confirm, what we just walked through is the list of all the priority one items you intend to put in the budget. Is that correct?
Right, for this upcoming fiscal year.
Okay. And are there any items that were scheduled to become priority one this year that fell off of this list?
So no, I don't believe so. We just reprioritized that library project with the input from this committee. The library is reimagined.
Okay. And I did have a question on that. Sorry, if I could
Go ahead.
continue and ask a more specific question. On the DHS library, my understanding from the discussions about the library reimagined project was partly that usage of the library is at capacity, that kids don't have places to sit and that there's it's a survival of the fittest in there a little bit to get a spot. So I don't see us adding any equipment or furniture that would help address that. Do we have a way that we're going to work on that, or have we set that aside?
So we met with the librarian and Tim, our new IT professional, and the consensus was in order to have more flexible library stacks, that would be an added bonus so that they can create more usable space for the students. Right now, those stacks are very much set in place and immobile.
Okay, so these will address that. Thank you
That's
so
right.
much.
Katie?
Kevin, can you explain the issue with the chiller? I'm just curious why we're having malfunctions with a relatively new piece of equipment.
Absolutely. The chiller replacement predates me, but I would imagine that the load calculations at the time were either not done or maybe something was missed. But essentially the chiller is much stronger than just the library itself. So we'd like to add these extra rooms on the second floor to the system to stop the issue.
So will that put AC places that just uses window units now? Will it
That's
actually
right.
improve?
That's
Good.
right. So
Okay.
we would put a ceiling cassette unit in the middle of the classroom. We would get rid of the window units, which vibrate and cause a lot of noise and headaches. So it's actually a benefit to the teachers and the students in those spaces.
So can you just say that again?
Sure. So right now the spaces have air conditioning, albeit from window units. So we would be able to remove those window units and install cassette units in the ceiling, in the drop ceiling, that get tied to the chiller. So the space is still being cooled, just in a little bit better, more efficient manner.
Yeah, this morning there is one item, Joy, in response to your question. Are these all the items that will be in the FY25 budget proposal for capital expenditures? There is one here I want to mention because it could have been on here or considered as a separate appropriation. So I'll have to ask the board how they want to deal with that, but we might want to put it actually in here now. I didn't, and upon reflection, maybe I should have. So that is a line in the high school, the middle school, and Tokenique, the exterior of the building regarding safety, to harden those areas consistent with Oxbridge and the ETHR projects. It's about 950,000. It would cross over the middle school, the high school, and Tokenique. If it was considered as a separate appropriation, that's a different discussion, but perhaps I include it here until and if the board decides to do it some other way.
Thank you.
One more question, Kevin. About the servers, I'm curious, all the schools have servers located at their buildings.
Correct.
So why is it just Tokenique that's?
Sure. So Tokenique is a two-pipe system. So we either have cooling or we have heat. And the problem with that is that these servers generate a lot of energy and a lot of heat is being transferred. So a number of years ago, an individual standalone unit was put in that server room to provide cooling. Well, with that unit down and either in heating season or when the air conditioning is not running, we don't have a way to cool the equipment that's in there. Added to the fact that we've increased servers over the years and we're putting out a lot more heat than we ever have before, this is a pretty good priority for us. So right now we're venting the space and leaving the doors open to help some airflow to prevent the equipment from overheating, but we definitely need cooling in the space year round.
So Tokenique just has a different system and that
Yes.
particular unit in the one is failing. So that's why.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Julie, this also, to finish out the thought, this also with the high school library potentially pushes that library down a number of years. So it doesn't get a reconfiguration until later on.
But it will help make the library work
Yeah,
better
well,
and
it'll-
meet
it'll
the
improve it.
educational needs better than what we have at the moment.
Yes, but not, like, I can't say radically so, right? But
Right. Okay. To follow up on that, I think there was a second like podcasting setup that we had at the library that we didn't have any way to use at DHS. Like, can we now put that, would we be able to use that moving forward?
Not potentially, no, actually.
Okay.
Kevin, I have a few questions. So, excuse me, the 1,000 desks. Number one, How many desks are at the high school? Number two, do we have a desk replacement program?
So yes, we replaced a number of desks. I want to say it was 40 a year for the past year or so. And the breakage that we're experiencing, that's not going to help us catch up. So the number of desks is approximately 1,500 based on enrollment. So just doing fast math, this gives us a shot in the arm to catch up to where we need to be with what we're seeing on a breakage level.
Okay. I had the same question as Katie on the servers, and then kind of a silly question, but why do we have two different snow blowers at DHS and Oxbridge?
Sure. So Oxbridge, we're specifying a smaller unit. It's a stand-on, not enclosed. So it'll help the custodian considerably, but it's not nearly as aggressive as the one we need at the high school.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the windows here, we never replaced these windows here. I thought we did that a couple of years ago.
In the lower level, just below this
Lower
room, the windows were leaking considerably. And we did those last year, but now we need to address these windows here and one over in the finance office.
I knew we did windows. Julie.
Thank you. One more question on radio replacements. Do we have a schedule for that, or are we playing catch up in this budget and then would hopefully have a schedule moving forward so that we're not replacing as many at once?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
So a catch up year and then work on a schedule moving forward?
So there's the radios are spread out over 3 years within this capital budget.
Okay.
And then they'll last about 10 years, and then you'll see kind of a spread again where you'll do the high school, middle school, et cetera.
Okay.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you. I just had two questions. One, with the desk breaking up in the high schools, anybody getting injured with these? Is it a safety issue at this point?
We believe it is. It's the crossbar that, students tend to put their feet on. And if it does break, there's a chance for sharp metal to, impact students.
And then the data room at the elementary school, like how many numbers are we crunching? Like what's the data room for that it needs such extensive equipment? I'm just surprised we would have that kind of heavy use in an elementary school.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
So the data room at the elementary school, I'm just curious as to what kind of server load we have and what kind of like heavy intensive numbers we're crunching there in an elementary school that necessitates the need.
Sure. So the BTUs was calculated through the help of Jeff Adams in our IT department based on the number of servers and equipment he has in the space. We're also looking to add servers in the future for additional security cameras. So that was calculated into this as well.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kate.
In the breakdown by school, I see that the middle school roof is listed twice for the same number. Is that, can you just?
Yeah, so essentially the roof is so big that we anticipate it crossing 2 fiscal years, a phase 1 and a phase 2, if you will.
So sorry, am I understanding correctly that the roof at the middle school is going to cost like $17 million?
That's correct. We're anticipating the cost of roofing has gone up considerably, and we're trying to project out several years. And then there's.
So how does replacing, I thought there was another roof that was on the
High
list.
school.
So, and that's considerably,
Tokenique, sorry.
sorry?
Tokenique High School, Middlesex.
Yeah, so those roofs are, the middle school is particularly like the most expensive roof. Is that due to design, to square footage?
It's a number of factors. Number one is the age, how bad the insulation below is either leaking or taking in water, and then any mechanicals associated with removing in order to replace the roof.
So at what point when we look across the middle school, for example, right, over the next 5 years, like how do we kind of evaluate the total cost that we're putting into capital projects versus alternatives?
So I think the middle school is, it's been a topic of discussion, not just from a library and a usability standpoint, but there are a number of concerns at the building that may trigger a larger full-scale project. But given that we're in the midst of rebidding HHR a second time around, I think it was.
Yeah. So how do we kind of mitigate then understanding the constraints and the things that we have going on in the district, but also not just kind of throwing money into a project that may not get its money back out of, right? Like, how do we look at that critically so that we aren't throwing money away?
Sure. So what we're doing is not only having meetings like this and discussing where the committee wants to go in the future, but we're making changes to the middle school that'll help the students now. And then also there's a maintenance component where when the roofs leak, we address them as they crop up. But at some point, we're going to need to look at the building in its entirety.
So can you remind me then what our plan is in terms of that kind of master plan and that entire sort of building facility replacement cycle? I know that, Oxbridge is just finishing up and HHR is continuing. So kind of what's our plan and what's our potential next capacity?
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the master plan was that once HHR was breaking ground and underway, we would look at possibly launching a study of the middle school to see what we could do with the building. Apologies, in a major building project.
And a study is generally, we would say like that would be a year, and then
Just study could be a year and a half, depending on the building itself.
And if we were determined, then there would be probably another year or two of
So
planning.
typically, so if HHR is going to take 2 years, that's about when you would start a study for the middle school. That study would probably take about a year, and then it would be brought to the board just like the HHR study was done. The board would either, approve going forward with that specs or not going forward with that specs. If they approved going forward with that specs, you figure another year or so to create those ed specs and bring them forward to the board. And then the board has to decide whether or not they're going to approve the ed specs and then ask the town for a building committee project. And then, within that time frame, probably 6 months to a year between putting out a bid for an architect and actually starting the process, getting approval from the state and so on.
So just to summarize then, it sounds like you were saying about 5 years from now to where we would kind of get to that decision point.
Probably
about
4 to 5 years.
And so then that means that we're pretty close to enacting this schedule for the middle school.
I would think if within that 4 to 5 year time frame, if you're pretty close to deciding, the middle school is going to be a building committee project, you're going to wrap in that roof replacement into that project. Similar to what we did with the HHR committee, where you had roof replacement plans for some of those buildings like Henley and Holmes, and then you wrap those into that project.
And by wrap in, you mean we wouldn't actually complete that capital project?
So the roofs would essentially be part of the building committee project, then they'd come off the district capital.
Okay.
So you're saying this schedule allows us to reconsider how we're going to approach the roof project,
Correct.
assuming we'll have more.
Correct. So as you get
information.
closer to that time period, it might be
Critical.
that
Correct.
the roof project either gets dropped off the normal capital project and it comes into the building committee project. It could be that you decide you don't want to do anything with the middle school and a building committee project, and maybe the roof deteriorates a little bit more. Maybe you want to move it up. It does give you a little bit of flexibility in terms of either going forward or not.
Okay, that's really helpful to context those timelines. Thank you.
So there's no, in the capital project operating budget, there's no capital plan for the middle school for FY25, just right. So you'll notice that or not notice that. But at some point we have to look at what do we want to do with that building, right? And in a fairly defined time period. And it may also coincide with when you actually look at the library at the high school too. That's plausible.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And since we're discussing the roofs, have we spec'd out doing solar on middle school, Tokenique and high school?
So no, not at this time, and that would go hand in hand with a larger project. And obviously, the more buildings you would like to specify in a solar project, the better your return would be.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I think our next item is public comment.
Dennis, can I just clarify for you? Alan, are you
Yes.
planning to put the 950K in security, external security on the capital plan that goes to the Board of Ed?
I would ask the committee, but I think I would. My intention probably was split that around the 3 schools, the 950, and show it within the respective schools. Or would
Yeah,
Mr. Brown.
it may not be appropriate to do in this meeting, but maybe it's an executive session item, just a little discussion as to what this is would help us have a better understanding.
I would
I
agree.
agree.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead,
So
Katie.
is that yes or no, or?
Katie,
Thanks.
sorry.
I think the thought was to discuss an executive session, right?
Yeah, I want to know what
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
I'll be happy to tell
Yes,
you whether I
of
like
course,
it or
of
not.
course. All right. Yeah, of course.
It's a big number with a vague description right now.
Yes, it
I
is.
understand the need for
Yes, it
vague,
is.
but
Understood.
Sorry, I did have one question. Can you just talk about the license plate reader cameras? The intention behind that line item?
Sure, that's driven by Mr. Krolikowski. It helps add a layer of security to our campuses where those cameras would be able to identify vehicles coming and going onto the properties.
Do you have a sense for what the lifespan is of that?
I don't, I'm sorry.
Okay, so perhaps that's something we could get a further update on as well.
Mr. Brown.
And again, this may be an executive session item, but we'd just like to know what the integration is with DPD and make sure we're aligned technology-wise with this project.
We actually will have the opportunity to do that Tuesday. Tuesday evening.
Thank you all. Public comment?
Good morning. If anyone in person would like to participate, please come up to the podium. If anyone online, please use the raised hand icon. There are no raised hands.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Best, Mrs. Lublin, all in favor?